Okay, agenda item 7, Tutira Regional Park, our pine forest in the park, and James Powery is our forestry expert, so he has been frontline on this work and will continue to be throughout its process. The pine forests are due for harvest. The forecast for potential log prices we anticipate will drop as increased timber comes onto the market, and also the cost of harvests are likely to increase over time as the resources for that harvesting, including the engineering works associated with them, are becoming more stretched with that increase in predicted log exports from Hawke's Bay. So what we're looking for here, we've done a lot of work in terms of options for extraction of this forest. We have set out a number of options there, which we have obviously been working very closely with Mangahuru Trust on, and they have made it very clear to us, and I do now have a letter from them, but unfortunately I didn't have it at the time that these went out, saying option 1 is not an option as far as they're concerned, because of the potential impact or they are stronger than potential impact because the impact on their sites of significant. So we are continuing to work with our option 2, which is a landowner to the north, and if you go to the map attached to this paper somewhere, I saw one here somewhere, there is a map somewhere in your papers, yes.
Page 21.
Page 21, sorry, yeah. So that gives you an outline of the route that we're intending to take, with the blue being stage 1, which we are seeking your agreement to commence construction this summer, given the fact that the rain's going to stop soon and we can get in. But that includes a bridge crossing of Papakiri Stream, which is the stream that feeds into Lake Tutira, and is commonly called Sandy Creek. So we're looking at doing that this summer. That gives us then the opportunity of tendering out the first set of harvest, including the construction of the remaining infrastructure during next summer. That's the plan. And for those that can picture this forest on the eastern side of Lake Tutira, the first blocks to be harvested are those that are sort of at the front of the park, so nearest the lake, basically. And clearly, although those are surrounded by land and floodplains, they're probably not the high risk of sediment being deposited into the lake. The real high risk stuff is the stuff further up towards Ridgemount Road. So we are well aware of the implications of potential sediment from this. That has got to be a key factor in how we assess tenders, how we assess how we harvest, and all our sort of background work associated with that. So that's the key to this paper. I don't know whether you've got anything to add, James, in that.
I guess there's just a piece of background around environmental requirements for harvester. There is some change in the wind with a national environmental standard for plantation forestry having been developed but yet to be gazetted. If that does occur, then we'll be subject to requesting resource consent for some of this activity from ourselves, and we'll also be subject to a raft of new permitted activity conditions that will apply under that. So if that's confirmed and gazetted in May this year, then all of this activity would then come under that national environmental standard.
Thank you, Chair. Number 34 on page 17, talks about further harvest proceeds of 1.1 million 1920 will be available to fund HBRC general operations. Can you tell me what general you talking just go into?
General funding,
So why would it go in there?
that's where it will go. That's, this is, an income to council. It's not tied into anything specific.
But wouldn't it be more of an investment? Wouldn't it be money to be invested rather than just to run the day-to-day, surely? 30 years to get it.
You as a council agreed to this as being part of your cash flow process as part of the long-term plan. You have already budgeted for this.
So it's already in there.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
I've got two questions. Firstly, in relation to the spreadsheet on page 19, I noticed in the first year of harvest 2017-18 there is no budgeted item for slash retention down the bottom. Does that mean there's not going to be any slash, or you've got some other way of dealing with it?
Well, yeah. Fair
That's what I'm
comment.
worried about.
Look at the line above sediment control. We're sort of lumping all of those together, really. So
you can assure us there is slash retention.
I can assure you there is significant work that needs to go into management of sediment and slash right through the process. Yeah.
And one other question, Chair. This is in relation to replanting on page 16. I'm assuming that staff, in considering a replanting plan, will consider a range of options other than just replanting in pine. I'm not quite sure what the terrain looks like, but I'm assuming you'll be thinking about alternatives there.
Yes, we will. We've obviously have this conversation, and really it will be a political decision. We will come back to you with options, but there are some quite considerable and significant revenues potentially available from here, and pine harvest, or pine will, I suppose, work very well as keeping the soil on the hills for the next 28 years, if that's what you choose. The other options, and there are a whole range of them, pines have the advantage of being quite quick growing, so they reach a canopy closure very quickly. If you go to natives, you can wait for canopy closure for a long time. Mānuka, we're still waiting on our forest up there for canopy closure, so their risk periods are considerably longer potentially, or you can go to something longer life like redwoods or whatever, and there are pros and cons for each of those. So all of those options can be brought to you, and potentially a mixture of all of them could be the final answer.
Through you, Chair, can I just reinforce that comment from Councillor Bevan? I'd be very interested in being involved in that discussion about what species are used to replant the block.
I'll leave that for my speech, but I do have a question. Carbon credits. So we chop the forest down. Do we have to repay carbon credits?
So there has been a measurement event affecting this piece of forest, and there are carbon credits in the bank, if you like. But because of the age of the forest, those credits are all due to be repaid at the time of harvest. So unless we sell them, they're in the bank, and they will be surrendered at the harvest date.
So is that an effect on our balance sheet? Should that be it's not a cash flow effect, but it's a balance sheet hit. What's the quantum?
The quantum will be some tens of thousands of tonnes. So unless we sell them, there's no liability created. So it'll be unwise to sell them given how close that surrender date is.
Just in terms of carbon, we are sort of in the stages of developing a carbon strategy or process for you, and that will come back to you later on this year for obviously your agreement or otherwise. So that is in the process of being developed. There is a safe carbon area that, well, part of the carbon is what they call safe carbon, provided you replant the block. But that is, once you sell that, it's a one-off sale. Even if you replant, you're not going to get another lot of safe carbon the next round. So it does need some careful consideration, and it will need to be considered in terms of what sort of species you're planting, whether you're planting for carbon or for harvest, and how you manage your liabilities associated with that carbon. So all of that needs to be explained and brought back to you, and will be later this year, not by me.
You'll be swanning around Africa.
Page
Just a
17.
quick question, Chair.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
The sale of the timber, how far through that process are you? Like, as in who's, have you got we're just going to use a contractor and then we'll go to the market, or what are we going to do?
Oh, so we'll go to the market, and in all likelihood, the successful bidder will have their own contracting workforce, and they'll engage them for that work.
Because just the reason I say that is, and this is a request that was floating around last year, and I think if you remember, I did bring it to you. I think pretty sure I did. The local mill in White was struggling for timber, and he was just hoping to be part of the consideration going forward. Not a blatant plug for the local employer up north.
Allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Just the sale process is covered in items 23 and 24, really. So we are, part of the recommendations, if you adopt them, will be to delegate decisions on harvest and the approach to your interim chief executive, who's going to get up to speed with forestry extremely quickly, he told me.
So I guess just to expand on that, the answer there regarding marketing, it would be easy for us to request that pricing is displayed for that sales option, but then we'd have to make a call as to how far we went away from alternatives in order to subsidise that option if there was a price differential.
I'm not asking for subsidy, I'm just
Yeah.
saying
Yep.
consideration.
Yeah, just one further question. Recommendation 2.7, you note that the net return is in excess of about $2 million, which is less than the net return expected or included within the long-term plan. How much less? Does that make this decision significant or not? Or
Well, no, I don't believe it makes it significant. It's $800,000 less than has been provided in the long-term plan. The estimates that we have provided in this paper, we believe we are on the low side for our potential income, and hopefully on the high side for the costs associated with infrastructure and harvest. But yeah, it's very difficult to predict that sort of thing. At the time of estimating for the long-term plan, log prices would have been different, and we were probably thinking about bringing it out over the option 1 road, which is again, quite significantly, or would have been cheaper if that was available to us. Yeah.
Do you have a question?
No, I'm just ready to move.
Just one question from me then. In weighing the companies who might submit to do this work, how will we weight the concern I suppose this council would have about this being a model project in terms of harvesting practice and sediment control and all of that versus profit maximization for the council?
Yeah.
How do you plan to weight those and come at this?
Okay, I can answer that. In the tender process, or the seeking for proposals process, we will set out very clearly the attributes by which we are going to assess those proposals. Part will be cost, part will be track record, certainly part will be methodology, and obviously the sort of experience of the harvester will be part of that. Those are the sort of four that spring to mind. Price, this is standard process in any tenders, and we let tenders with through council. So for something that's pretty straightforward, such as West Shore, carting metal from here to there, it's purely price, 100%. For argument's sake, animal pest control, where we are looking for, we are working with contractors who are out there as our ambassadors for council. We want a quality job done, etc., etc. We sort of assess price at 30%. So you've got to, your other attributes are a significant part of that. So in terms of this, we haven't sort of made that judgment yet, but that will certainly be part of the documents that go out when we're seeking proposals. We will say your proposals will be scored on this basis, and those scores will be weighted according to this process.
So can I take that as an assurance that while Rex and Paul and Ian are out fixing up Lake Tutira with their hotspot crusade, that we won't be mucking it up through the back door with what we're doing forestry-wise?
We certainly don't want to be, but in all of these things, there are, I mean, we have a risk period. We will have to mitigate the risks associated with, potential storms occurring during that risk period. If we get a cyclone bowler in the middle of that risk period, you are going to get sediment in that lake, whether or not we've harvested or not. Yeah.
Because just through you, Chair, I mean, this is following on from that line of questioning, or that line of statement. It does concern me, Mike, that you had 4 criteria where you were going out for tender, and you didn't include in that use of best environmental standards in harvesting or something along those lines.
That falls under the methodology so that. Yeah, sorry, I didn't make that clear.
Peter, would you like to move? Seconder? Mr. Graham, okay. Anyone wish to speak? Peter first.
Just very briefly, you've raised the issue that all of us are mindful of, which is we are a regional council responsible for environmental issues, and this is a very public site, so it's not going to be that flash if we get our harvest management wrong, and I'm pleased to hear that the environmental processes or management that will be put in place is uppermost in your mind in assessing the people that might be doing this work for us. And I guess the other thing for me is the options for replacing that, whether it's pine or something else. I can't help thinking it might be quite helpful once we're underway here to take a field trip up there and just get an idea of what the place is like, and that will help us to evaluate the options a little bit better.
Peter stole all my thunder. We don't want to have front pager with slash going into Tutira, which we're responsible for, so we'll just further endorse that. And I'm very interested in the replanting options as well. So I would like not a lengthy paper, but just a paper on what is the cost of planting it back in natives, and how would we go about that. It might be a 100-year plan, and have to give credit to the people that did this, and it was only a 20-year plan, and landing $1 million in our bank is great, but I think the world has changed, and I would like to look at the costs and the options of doing pine against us re-establishing natives. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Just one comment, Mr. Chair. I note the decline in revenue from about 800,000. So before even starting his job, the interim chief executive has got the task of finding $800,000 for us.
Any other comments? I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Passed.